Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode from StoreTech Retailing in the Dark. I'm Victoria and I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager at StoreTech, and I spend a lot of time talking to multi-site retailers about how their stores are performing, what challenges they're facing, and how they can make improvements. And one thing that seems to come up time and time again is this idea that even well-run businesses, successful retailers, there's still a bit of a blind spot when it comes to knowing what's actually happening inside your store. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And to help unpack that, I'm joined by David Kennett, our Head of Technology and Operations.
Thank you, Victoria. Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
And I think what makes this more interesting is that you've actually been on both sides of it. If I can say, you've spent 20 years in retail operations before moving across to StoreTech. So you've seen everything firsthand. So yeah, it'd be great to hear a bit of background about that.
Cool. Thank you very much. So yes, I started in retail, leaving school straight into high street retail, working in store. Working in departments, running a store, and then into field roles, working across multiple retailers in the high street and supermarkets, and then to head office, worked in sales and marketing for a short while, and then retail operations. So that, yes, amounts to over 20 years at the cold front of retail, busy retail. So multiple retailers, and it's really given me a good background knowledge and front-facing knowledge of how stores operate day to day. But for the last 17 years, been here at StoreTech, first as implementation and support manager, helping train retailers that we work with, from shoe retailers and fashion retailers, and then to look after our development and support functions, and more recently looking at technologies that we can integrate with. So done pretty much most roles in StoreTech, and definitely seen both sides of running stores, and it's great now being able to pass some knowledge back and help retailers understand their performance and properly make decisions around improving their performance based on pure data.
Yeah, and I do think it is important that you've actually been there yourself on the shop floor. So let's start there. When you talk about retailers operating in the dark, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you go back 25 years, most retailers never had footfall data. Footfall was in its infancy as a technology that people could use to count how many are coming into their store. So all we had was just sales data. And that initially was actually just at the end of the week. I remember running a report to get your end of week sales figures. And then daily data and EPOS has come a long way to help give visibility to sales information, but it doesn't give information on why. So why are my sales the number that they are? Conversations stay then around looking at sales versus yesterday, versus last week or last year. But you miss a whole layer of data because you're not looking at footfall and you're not understanding what your actual conversion is. So without it, you don't actually know if you've got a demand problem because your sales are static perhaps or falling, or if there's a conversion problem in your store that might be the reason why sales are particularly bad. So you might have a bad day, but you might just be blaming that on fewer customers coming into your store rather than thinking it in terms of, did you convert more people or enough of the people that did come into your store?
Yeah. So this uncertainty then, where does it come from? Is it to do with the training?
I think it's due to lack of visibility, and it comes back to our theme today around retailing in the dark. So stores are busy places. I've been there, and they are truly busy with instructions from head office, managing stock, turning that around onto the sales floor, running reports, deliveries, tasking, pricing. There's lots of stuff retail staff have to do during the course of the day. Managers likewise will have head office requests to go to manage, meetings to go to, and then of course they're all busy doing their thing, and it's very easy to actually forget the number one thing that you're there to do, which is serve those customers or those potential buyers that are coming into your store. So stores are busy, hopefully staffed correctly, but you don't really know that for sure. And what we want to help people understand is, are they converting the opportunity that's coming through their store?
Yeah, because I can imagine that, people on the shop floor, they do have this list of jobs that they need to get done, and they want to feel productive and they want to get ready for the next day of trading. But it can be obviously to the neglect of the customer who's ultimately going to contribute to your conversion or not.
Absolutely, and I think we've all been there. There's many scenarios that we've all witnessed, particularly for example, walking down the high street, going into a store maybe early in the day, and staff are either very busy doing lots of tasks at the beginning of the day, or maybe just standing around kind of waiting and hoping that customers will come in. We've all had that experience where either there's lots of staff and they don't really engage with you, they don't interact, they don't welcome you into the store, they don't see if there's something you can help them with. And likewise, busy stores with staff doing lots of things, lots of tasking. There's the potential that they don't really look up and see that you're there. Maybe you're not sure where to go in the store. Maybe you're after some help on a particular product, and they're not engaging enough to actually then take you through that process. So, there's clear opportunities at both ends around missed engagement. That is a real problem in retail. The opportunity is there. Yes, footfall generally is down. People all talk about the online world has taken over the high street, and high streets have got smaller and lots of stores are closing down. But there is still clear opportunity. People want to touch and feel product. They want to engage in the store environment if it's enticing enough, and they want staff that are there, helpful and engaging to fulfil that need.
Yeah, I still like a bricks and mortar store personally. So what's the cost and impact of these missed opportunities?
So the real costs are kind of twofold. One is too many staff, so you end up with inefficiencies by having staff standing around with nothing to do for part of the day. And then points in the day where you can get overwhelmed. You'll have too few staff and too many customers coming through the door, particularly at the weekends. We all know weekends prime for families to go out shopping. But they quite often are the times when there's just not enough staff in the store to deal with the number of people coming through. And likewise, that's missed opportunities, missed sales opportunities at that end. So both ends of the scale, too many staff, too few staff. So we've seen situations where stores are quiet in the morning. I've talked about this, and teams are busy on the sales floor. And then at lunch times, staff want to go to lunch, which is typical. You want lunch at lunchtime, but that quite often is when customers come out and want to browse from one retailer to another, and there's an increase in footfall, but staff aren't available because they're also gone out to lunch. So it's that alignment piece and getting the staffing right based on the demand that's coming through the store, particularly at lunchtime periods. So another example would be seeing long queues in the UK, or the British public.
We love a queue.
We love a queue. A chance to have a chat with people in the queue, but it's also a point of irritation quite often that either there's too few staff on the till, or where there are staff, they're not coming back onto the till to deal with the increase in in customers ready to make a purchase. So queuing is a prime example of when you just don't quite get the alignment of right number of staff to the demand. And if you got that right, you'd have far more happier customers. So you can end up with abandoned baskets or people walking out and certainly telling their friends. You know, we've all done it from bad shopping experiences. We tell our friends that we had a bad experience at that retailer or that store and we're not going to go there again. So you just don't want that.
Yeah, you kind of label that store then as, oh, it's always busy, or their staffing's really bad, the service isn't good. And also if you're walking the high street, if you do see inside a store there's a queue, that can be off-putting. So you might not even end up going in the store at all.
For sure. And that means lost sales, lost opportunity, lower conversion, and the customer always remembers that, and they'll avoid that retailer or that particular store in the future, and that's what you need to avoid.
Yeah, so that queue not being tended to is likely to be, a big reason for the drop in sales. But what do stores tend to misdiagnose? What do they think the reason could be?
Yeah, well, again, without footfall and conversion data, you're back to just looking at your pure sales figure against yesterday, against last week, against last year, and you kind of fall into the cave of just assuming it's based on the stock that's been provided to you by head office or the type of promotion that has been passed down to you to advertise. Or the competition on the high street, perhaps where you're located, a new store's opened up and you're thinking all the demand has gone there and you've gone backwards in terms of your appeal on the high street. Or maybe it was just a quiet day, just didn't look like we were busy, not many people came in. And so they're the things that managers quite often will be looking at and thinking that that's the problem with their sales information, until, of course, they get some footfall data. And then they can start to see different opportunities and they can start to measure it based on conversion.
Yeah. And how often do retailers get it wrong? If they end up fixing the wrong thing, like, oh, let's change that promotion, let's move it here because that must have been the problem or whatever.
Yeah, it always. It's very easy if you're only looking at one element of your data set, your sales data, that you'll start chasing something that will just completely the wrong end of the scale. And we talk to retailers in terms of things that they can control and things that they can't control. And it's very interesting that you start to begin to see a shift in mindset when you start to uncover the things that are that they can affect and the things they just need to let be, and there'll be elements that are completely out of their control. So, for example, the weather. No one can predict the weather in the UK for sure, and it can change from 1 minute to the next, and you just have to accept the weather will do what it's going to do, and you get on with the things that you can affect. The same really applies, particularly in store for the store manager. Stock and availability and pricing, they can be controlled to some degree by head office, but at store level you get the delivery, that's what you've got to deal with that, and assume that's all you can control. Again, local events can have a big impact on demand, on an increase in demand on the high street. And then there's the usual irritations of roadworks or parking prices going up, and all those kind of things will again affect demand where you're located, and you have to just accept they are out of your control and they're not things that are worth spending time on. You need to start thinking about things that are in your control, and there'll be things around staffing, having the right people at the right time, doing the right tasks, and that customer engagement piece. There's a massive opportunity in retail to make sure that everyone is greeted and you're following through on all of those great customer service experience skills that you've been taught to really deliver a memorable experience when customers come in. So it's those selling skills that you've been taught. And prioritizing tasks is a massive one. So knowing when the right time to carry out tasks. Tasks are always going to happen, but where's the point in the day that's the best time to do those, where you're not going to irritate customers or miss opportunities with customers coming through the door. And then things around lunch breaks, tea breaks, when's the right time to take those, that isn't again going to affect the increase that you might have over the course of lunchtime, that might affect your ability to serve customers coming into your store.
Yeah. And so StoreTech works with, one store retailers and multi-site retailers. Do you think it's a wise move for retailers to sort of compare the stores within their estate? Can it be like for like? Is benchmarking helpful, or should each store sort of be looked at individually?
For sure, the latter. I think, again, likewise to what you can control and what you can't control. A location of a retail store is unique to that location and that retail store. You'll have different demographics that will come to your store, different competition where you're located on the high street or in a shopping mall or in a retail park. They all have unique elements to the demand that you're likely to get, the passing traffic, and there'll be many factors again outside of your control once they've once you've taken up position on the high street. That shop unit is there to try and reap the demand, try and increase the foot traffic flow, but what you can achieve is going to be unique to your location. And although you can get a sense of an average at company level, you need to focus purely on what you can do in your store to affect the conversion as a benchmark figure and try and move the dial on that figure, rather than go, I'm on 5% and the next town the guy's on 10% or 20%, and everyone's saying there's something wrong with my store. But you need to move the dial from 5 to 6%, and the guy down the road needs to move the dial from 20 to 21%, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah. And some areas are more heavily tourist areas, aren't they? They're, so they will just be inherently different.
For sure. Yeah. There'll be many factors on the types of customers that any retailer is going to get. And they just need to take that on board, that is just the way it is.
Yeah. And I think with the footfall data, because it is real time, then at least the store teams can make a difference on the day, rather than wait to the end of the day and retrospectively look back.
Absolutely. And this is a great step change, and something we're passionate about at StoreTech, to actually provide real-time data, updating every half hour throughout the day. And you can actually make a difference then before the day's ended. Back in the day, you'll get your sales report at the end of the day, and that's great to kind of review and look back at, but what can you do to affect it? You can't. You can only move forward from that for the next day and hope to do better. But actually, if you're getting data live every half hour throughout the day, you can affect your conversion every half hour, and you can challenge your store team to drive conversion. Focus one member of staff on driving conversion in the next hour and see if they can beat the previous staff member, and start challenging people. Make it a fun challenge to try and drive conversion.
Yeah, I'd like a bit of competition. It'd be good.
For sure. And store managers love to be incentivized over it. We're finding retailers really grasping that conversion is a real key metric, and then being incentivized to drive that metric, because the retailers can clearly see if you drive conversion, you naturally drive your sales and your performance.
Yeah. So what is the difference between online and in-store analytics?
But there really isn't any difference. If you imagine online, people click on a website, they browse, and then if you're lucky enough, they'll put something in their basket. And if the process is nice and smooth, they'll go through and pay for that product, and you've got a buyer. And you've got tracking against that. Everyone knows Google Analytics. You're able to track how many people have landed on your website and through what pages they're clicking, what products they're looking at, all the way through to when they make a purchase. And the same to most degrees is true in bricks and mortar retail. So in store, you can track people as they enter the store. You could track them through the store with customer journey, and you can use your sales information alongside your footfall data to provide a conversion figure. And there you've got the key metric to measure store performance fully.
And what are the main changes at the different levels to focus on? So say store level, manager level and business level.
Up. So at store level, stores should really focus on their staffing and the impact that has during the course of the day. So staff alignment is really, really important, and knowing when to sell versus when to task. So when to make sure you've got all your sales staff on the sales floor, and then when to send some of those off to task. And it's really important to get that right, to make sure you don't have any missed opportunity, any customers disappearing because there's not enough staff on the sales floor to deal with those people that are browsing. And then for managers, it's a shift in real focus on not just looking at your sales figures, but looking at conversion as a whole, looking at the shape and the pattern of that through the course of the day, through the week, to see where there's opportunities. So where are there dips in conversion that may be around staff doing particular things that they shouldn't be doing ideally, maybe back to the tasking and selling, or going to lunch, and then looking at driving that consistency across the week. So having conversations with store teams around how can we improve our conversion at this hour based on our previous performance. What do we need to change in our behaviour to actually drive that consistency across every hour of the day and every week?
And I guess that, footfall, you need to be consistent with it, don't you? You need to continue to monitor it, because these trends and patterns, they'll fluctuate over the year, over a week maybe, but certainly over a year. And you can't necessarily say, oh, this store performs in this way all the time.
Yeah, just as much as one day weather-wise is different to another day, your footfall, your conversion will be different. There'll be similarities in small periods of time, but when you look at month to month, there'll be unique patterns, and there'll be things that will change those patterns. Again, back to what's in your control, what's outside of your control. New retailers opening up, retailers closing down, changes environmentally around you that will affect the patterns that you're going to get. So it's a constant review and constant chasing of your conversion and trying to beat it every time, every week. Looking back at what did you do yesterday, what did you do last week to drive conversion, what can you do this week to do the same, and looking where those patterns fluctuate and just dealing day to day with those, making sure operationally you're doing the best job you can with organising when people have breaks, when there's shift changes, the coverage of staff is optimised so you can deliver a great service and make sure every customer is engaged with.
Great. And if someone wants to explore this further, where should they go, David?
Well, we've got some great resources on our website, StoreTech.com/resource. There was one I was just reading the other day called Boost Retail Staff Scheduling with Footfall Analytics. But there's plenty on there to take a look at. But also feel free to come and have a chat with either of us, actually. We're always up for a little chat and to see where you are in the world and how we can help you, because we've got lots of experience to share and ideas and best practice from lots of retailers we've dealt with. So always happy for people to come and get in touch with us and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from anyone wanting to continue the conversation, so do get in touch. Brilliant. Thanks, David, for sharing all that.
Very welcome. Been great chat.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.